Fish is a delicacy enjoyed by humans all over the world. Common fish is affordable for many people. However, some species can only be enjoyed by those who can afford the extra expense. The problem is that the fish are reasonably priced. They can reach $500 to $100.
Overlooks the city's downtown waterfront. Crowds gather around comforting displays of food. Stacked like treasure on cushions of ice, several king salmon stare blankly back, their thick sides burnished with a silver sheen. As one of the top 3 favorite seafoods globally, along with tuna and shrimp, salmon isn't a tough sell. A couple on vacation from Kalamazoo, Michigan, giggles and points to a 10-pounder. The fishmonger closes the deal with a pretend shake of the fin and tosses the fish theatrically to his colleague behind the counter, who makes a backhanded circus catch before brandishing a large fillet knife that gleams in his hand. Each spring, as the dogwoods begin to bloom, salmon leave the deep blue pastures of the North Pacific and return to their natal streams to spawn and die. For millennia, people in salmon country from Alaska to California and inland to Idaho have celebrated this miraculous gift from the sea. In mid-May, when the first Copper River kings and sockeye arrive from Alaska, a whole king of 20 or more pounds might sell for upwards of $40 per pound at Pike Place Market. Cleaned and filleted, the same fish costs nearly double. Customers hardly bat an eye. Though the prices drop as lesser-known varieties pile up throughout the season, the region's signature wild salmon are always an attraction. These handsome fish capture our imaginations like no other, and the fishmongers have learned to stage a bit of showbiz flair to move their inventory. While tossing salmon is a ritualistic practice at Pike Place Market, up the slope in Seattle's Capitol Hill neighborhood, Chef John Sundstrom doesn't seek attention with airborne fish. Instead, he serves a lightly seared fillet skin up, a formerly eyebrow-raising practice that is gaining traction in many of the city's better restaurants. The reasoning is simple, and akin to the tenets of nose-to-tail dining. Salmon skin is a delicacy that deserves wider appreciation. At Sundstrom's restaurant, Lark, the salmon is always wild, never farmed. Bluefin tuna or bluefin tuna is a type of tuna that can be sold at high prices. Reported by CNN, for example,
smashing the
a
world
bluefin
record
tuna
for the
sold
most
for a
expensive
fantastic
tuna
price of
ever auctioned.
193
In January
million yen,
2019,
equivalent
he
to
splashed out an incredible $3.1 million on a single 278 kilogram bluefin tuna, coming in at $5,000.
Of the Fugu chef license mounted on his wall, yellowed now with age. He is one of a select guild authorized by Tokyo city government to serve the dish. When he begins work, the process is swift, and mercifully out of sight of the surviving Fugu swimming in their tank by the restaurant door. 23 people have died in Japan after eating Fugu since 2000, according to government figures. Most of the victims are anglers who rashly try to prepare their catch at home. A spokesman for the Health and Welfare Ministry struggles to think of a single fatality in a restaurant, though last year a woman was hospitalized after eating a trace of Fugu liver in one of Tokyo's top restaurants, not Miura-san's. Tetrodotoxin poisoning has been described as rapid and violent, first a numbness around the mouth, then paralysis, finally death. The unfortunate diner remains conscious to the end. There is no antidote. This would be enough to kill you, Miura-san says, slicing off a tiny sliver of Fugu ovary and holding it up. Then he carefully checks the poisonous organs on the tray, making sure he has accounted for everyone, and tips them into a metal drum locked with a padlock. They will be taken to Tokyo's main fish market and burned, along with the offcuts from other Fugu restaurants. Miura-san's skill is therefore highly prized. Fugu chefs consider themselves the elite of Japan's highly competitive culinary world. He started as an apprentice in a kitchen at the age of 15. Training lasts at least 2 years, but he was not allowed to take the practical test to get a license until he was 20, the age people become a legal adult in Japan. A third of examinees fail. So proposals by Tokyo city government to relax the rules have been met with an outcry from qualified chefs. Coming into effect in October, they would allow restaurants to serve portions of fugu that they have bought ready prepared off-site. We worked hard to get the license and had to pass the most difficult exam in Tokyo, says Miura-san. Under the new rules, people will be able to sell fugu after just going to a class and listening for a day. We spent lots of time and money. To get this skill you have to practice by cutting more than 100 fish, and that costs hundreds of thousands of yen. The authorities in Tokyo impose stricter regulations than any other Japanese city. In some, restaurants have already been able to sell pre-prepared fugu for a long time. And even in Tokyo these days, it is available over the internet and in some supermarkets, one reason why officials think the rules need updating. In terms of cost, it is likely fugu would become available in cheaper restaurants and pubs, izakayas. But going to a proper fugu restaurant to eat good wild-caught fish, prepared on-site, is quite a luxury, because of the cost, if nothing else, and also quite an event. For many, playing the equivalent of Russian roulette at the dinner table is the attraction of the dish. Some report a strange tingling of the lips from traces of the poison, although Miura-san thinks that is unlikely. He also scoffs at the myth that a chef would be honor-bound to commit ritual suicide with his fish knife if he killed a customer. Loss of his license, a fine, litigation, or perhaps prison would be the penalty. Guest cheerleader in New York is Dorothy Ken Hamilton, founder of the International Culinary Center. The fishing industry is dying and there is a reason to save these special tasting lobsters, says Hamilton. I want our village of Fourchu to have a viable fishing industry. Fourchu lobsters have been called the Kobe beef of lobsters, Maine, and compared to such revered specialties as Iberico ham. They are said to be sweeter and more flavorful than their brethren from other places thanks to the frigid waters in which they live and grow. The icy Atlantic makes for a super slow maturation. The idea, like slowly ripening grapes on a vine, is that more time allows for more flavor complexity to develop. Lobsters were once thought to be scavengers, scouring the ocean floor for carcasses. But they've actually been found to prefer fresh fish, so you can rest assured that their flavor comes from a good, wholesome diet. They are rather hard to breed, however, due to their propensity for cannibalism when in captivity. Through mid-July. During this time they'll be served daily at L'École, the ICC's restaurant, and featured at such restaurants as Blue Hill, Daniel, Gramercy Tavern, ABC Kitchen, and Spotted Pig. Ken Hamilton is sure that the flavor of her beloved Fourchus will convince you they're worth the wait each year. And worth, well, shelling out for. Pun fully intentional. It's the best diet food, she raves. The lobster doesn't need butter. With no second mortgage on your house needed, and since this recipe calls for cooked lobster, no trauma of cooking it at home, just ask your supermarket fish counter to steam it for you. They will happily do that, and your car will have a lovely vague aroma of cooked lobster while you drive home, which for me is a major bonus. Second, this frittata is full of other scrumptious things, obviously the eggs, but also chunks of melted Swiss cheese, tender zucchini, silky cream cheese, a little torn bread to give it some texture, and some sweet leeks. These are a few of my favorite things, all in one frittata. Those and lobster. Sauté the veggies together in a little olive oil just until they are tender, and whisk up the eggs until they are lovely and smooth. Now stir the veggies into the eggs, along with the lobster, the cheeses, the bread, and some herbs and spices, and pour the whole thing into a round baking pan. Bake it up for about 30 minutes, just until the eggs are set and a lovely golden color. Let it sit for just a few minutes to make it easier to cut, and then cut it up just like you would a quiche or a pie. Sweet lobster, little pockets of melted cheese, tender veggies, all held together with the eggs and the bread, and oh my! Tuesday night never tasted so good, and you're worth it. "5 months, to spawn and die, and the cycle starts over again." But anguillas weren't always Spain's most expensive food. As with so many luxury foods, anguillas started out as peasant fare. The high price is only a result of demand and scarcity brought on by overfishing. Today, anguillas are dangerously close to extinction. How are they used? Anguillas a la bilbana is a traditional Basque recipe, named after Bilbao, the city in northern Spain where it originated. And it's a simple preparation. First, olive oil is heated in an earthenware dish, along with sliced garlic and red guindilla chili, which is a skinny chili pepper with medium heat. Once the oil is sizzling, the anguillas are added and stirred, traditionally with a wooden utensil, because metal is thought to taint the mild flavor of the anguillas, briefly before removing them from the heat and serving right away, seasoned with salt and pepper and perhaps a splash of white wine. It's often served tapas style, as part of a multi-course meal. It's sometimes served with spaghetti. What do anguillas taste like? If you're wondering what Spain's most expensive food tastes like, the answer, oddly enough, is not much. The flavor itself is somewhere between mild to non-existent, while the texture is similar to that of cooked spaghetti, with a slight crunch to it. It's perhaps paradoxical, then, that the traditional method of preparing anguillas in a spicy oil is guaranteed to thoroughly overpower the flavor of the anguillas themselves. Especially given how much you're paying for the privilege. A tin containing 1.7 ounces, 50 grams, of anguilla sells for $50 in 2020, or about $1 per gram. A random sampling of recipes for preparing anguillas call for, respectively, 600 grams, 150 grams, and 320 grams of anguillas, with a single portion weighing in at anywhere from 50 to 75 grams. Thus, at $1 per gram, you're looking at a significant outlay of money to purchase this ingredient, and it may well put it far out of reach for all but the most devoted, or perhaps the achingly curious. Several internet retailers based in the United States carry 4-ounce jars of Spanish baby eels. They can be found online under brands like Conservas de Cambados, La Tienda, and Iberia. These real baby eels are from places like Galicia and are hand-prepared and packed in oil. Typically, the product is already seasoned with salt and cayenne pepper. If you're curious, but not enough to spend a small fortune, the imitation version might be more your speed. Gulas are available in jars or cans, 4-ounce/111 grams, for a fraction of the cost. Gulas can be enjoyed on sliced bread topped with mayonnaise and red peppers. NG from the pristine waters of South Australia's Coffin Bay. Unlike most oysters which are typically grown for about 18 months, these oysters are allowed to grow for up to 6 or 7 years. The extended growth period contributes to the oyster's distinctive size, texture, and flavor, yielding shellfish of premium quality. When shucked, the giant-sized oyster shell reveals a large piece of flesh on the inside that's often 10 times meatier than that of a normal-sized oyster. The meat is firm, yet tender and juicy, while the flavor is sweet and complex with a crisp saltiness and an intense, oceanic, lingering finish. Often featured among the world's most expensive food items, these oysters are best enjoyed as they are, with an optional squeeze of lemon or lime juice. These monster oysters, often called the steak of the ocean, go for as much as £56, $70, per oyster. They're farmed at Coffin Bay Oyster Farm in southern Australia, and the almost kilogram heavy, around 2 pounds, oysters are so big and expensive because they're allowed to grow for up to 7 years and have a lot more meat than other varieties. Oh, ordinary seafood curry though, not by a long shot. Using the best sea produce the world has to offer, and a blend of the finest Indian herbs and spices, the dish is every bit as delectable as you would expect. The Samundari Khazana, literally translating to ocean's treasure, the most expensive curry in the world, is served at Bombay Brasserie, a Taj Hotel's property, that boasts of a wide array of celebrity patrons including Woody Allen, Kurt Russell, Kenny Everett, Freddie Mercury, and Nicole Kidman, among many others. Rumor has it, Tom Cruise once used the upscale restaurant as a takeaway place when he got himself some chicken masala and prawn tandoori to go before rushing off to catch his private jet back to the United States, according to The Telegraph. Opened on December 10, 1982, Bombay Brasserie is said to have paved the way for the now booming multi-billion-pound industry of Indian restaurants in the UK. Priced at £2,000, the dish is aptly named as its ingredients, some of the most expensive to work with, are as close to food royalty as you can get. The curry is made of gently cooked abalone sea snails, costing £300 a kilo, Devon crab mixed with Italian white truffle, £90, gold-coated Scottish lobster, and beluga caviar-filled quail eggs. The edible gold itself is valued at over £1,000 for 10 grams. Head chef Prahlad Hedge is convinced the exuberant price tag doesn't deter potential customers. There are still people out there with money to spend, and this curry is a real experience. Chef Hedge told the Daily Mail. Mr. Hedge stays true to the authentic Indian gourmet food that Bombay Brasserie serves, saying, "The idea is from a basic Indian recipe I got from my mum, but we are using the finest ingredients in the world. The seafood is first marinated in chili and tamarind paste, a routine very similar to many Indian dishes, but that's where the similarity ends. A curry befitting the people that would eventually eat it, the dining experience offered is undoubtedly unparalleled. Of course, if you, like me, are not quite living the life of the rich and the famous, it's hard to imagine spending that kind of money on food, and this is coming from someone who spends all her money on food. But there's a reason it's the most expensive curry in the world. It's an experience, an exclusive luxurious experience reserved for the select few that can afford it. Until now, Almas caviar is still the most expensive food in the world. This sturgeon fish egg is priced at $25,000 or the equivalent of Rp. 302 million. The Persians were the first group of people to consume sturgeon fish eggs on a regular basis. They believe the delicacy of Almas caviar increases the physical strength and endurance of those who eat it. Quoted from the World Guinness Book Records page, Almas caviar is produced from rare albino sturgeon fish eggs that are around 60 to 100 years old. The Iranian beluga fish lives in the southern part of the Caspian Sea, which is low in pollution.
You can enjoy the most expensive fish soup in the world with a budget of IDR 2.5 million. Kai Mayfair restaurant in London, England, has made this dish with all the finest seafood. These include abalone, Japanese flower mushrooms, sea cucumbers, dried clams, and even shark fin. Be sure to notify the restaurant at least 5 days in advance if you wish to order this soup.